So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. I wanted to jump on really, really quickly here because what would this podcast be if we didn't question the authorities? And I'm going to be really calm with regards to this one, but I have to give a massive shout out to Michael Dean. I don't know if it's Mike Dean. I don't know if it's the same Mike Dean, but there's a Twitter account on Twitter, on X, I suppose, really. A Twitter account on X. Make that one make sense. It's called MickDAVFC, at MickDAVFC. And I came across a really interesting thing. And Jhon Townley has reported on it since, I think, based on Michael's Twitter thread. And I want to give him massive credit for this one. But the report for John Duran's appeal has been released. And I'm just going to read down through it. We're going to be nice and calm about this. We're not going to castigate anyone. We're just going to be nice and calm. But we often look for transparency within the FA and the appeals process. I looked for transparency. I wanted to know whether this appeal was rejected on the grounds that it didn't have an appeal, or whether the appeal was rejected on the grounds of submitted information. So let's take a look at the whole lot of it together. So I know there's been a lot of Paddy is here. Paddy's listening in. That Mike Dean would never have shared it. But I know there's been a lot of conjecture and a lot of talk about it, and it's already been reported by Jhon Townley, and he's written a very good article on it as well. But I wanted to read down through the whole report. So let's do it, guys. We're in this one for probably about 10 minutes. We're just going to read down through it. I'm going to let you guys make up your own mind on it. I've got my own opinions on it. You guys can have your own opinions on it. So the Football Association Regulatory Commission, in the matter of wrongful dismissal / excessive punishment claim brought by Aston Villa Football Club on behalf of John Duran. So this is the decision. So number one, these are the written reasons for a decision made by an independent regulatory commission, which sat on Friday, the 27th of December, 2024, via Microsoft Teams video conference. The commission members were Mr. Stuart Ripley, chairman. I wonder, is that former Southampton and Blackburn winger Stuart Ripley? I don't know, are there a lot of Stuart Ripleys in the UK? But it would be interesting. So he sat there. Mr. Bradley Pritchard and Mr. John Alexander, all three of whom are independent football panel members of the FA Judicial Panel. All right. So Mr. Conrad Gibbons of the FA Judicial Services Department acted as a secretary to the Regulatory Commission. I'm not 100% sure what that is. I presume he took notes and meeting minutes. The Commission were advised on the laws of the game and their application by Mr. Alan Wiley of the Referees Advisory Panel. So as Alan Wiley gave the guys a rundown of what the laws were in the meeting. In particular, the law relating to Law 12, Section 2, S2, violent conduct, and the factors considered by match official when determining such an incident. Mr. Wiley remained available to answer questions with regards to the laws of the game. So Mr. Wiley was Alan Wiley was he was like these guys were the jury, the three guys, and Alan Wiley was the judge. They were allowed to ask him what did the law pertain to and so on and so forth. If any of you have ever been on jury duty or seen anything like 12 Angry Men or anything like that. However, Alan Wiley never took no part in discussions concerning the actual specifics of the case or the Commission's decision. I would think that was the case. The IFAB laws of the game definition of violent conduct is as follows. Violent conduct is when a player uses or attempts to use excessive force or brutality against an opponent when not challenging for the ball or against a teammate, team official, match official, spectator, or any person, regardless of whether contact is made. Jesus, there's a lot in that with regards to João Pedro as it stands. My God. In addition, a player who, when not challenging for the ball, deliberately strikes an opponent or any other person on the head or face with the hand or arm is guilty of violent conduct unless the force used was negligible. In order for a claim of wrongful dismissal, put back in my teeth. In order for a claim of wrongful dismissal to be successful, the player and or his club must establish by the evidence it submits that the referee made an obvious error in dismissing the player. The burden rests on the player and or his club to prove this. The role of the regulatory commission is not to usurp the role of the referee and to simply re-referee the incident. The relevant incident took place during the Newcastle United FC and Aston Villa FC English Premier League fixture on the 26th of December 2024. In his official report from the match referee, Mr. Anthony Taylor stated, "I have to report that I, as the referee, sent off Duran Placios Jhon header of Aston Villa FC under Law 12 Section S2 SM. AVFC submitted 3 video clips to the incident. This is my rudimentary reading skills and my borderline dyslexia are really doing me no favors here, that have very clearly showed the incident from numerous angles and distances in both slow motion and real time. Within these clips, there was also zoomed in and highlighted footage, stills of the left foot, ankle of Jhon Duran, that had twisted and turned over during the incident. So we all question that. Did they know that happened? Did they see that happened? Was that brought up as a mitigating factor? AVFC also submitted a letter from Mrs. Sharon Barnhurst, AVFC's head of football administration, dated the 27th of December 2024, that set out why, in its opinion, the dismissal was wrongful, and why, alternatively, in the event that the dismissal is deemed by the Commission not to be wrongful, the imposition of a standard punishment of a 3-match suspension would be excessive. The Commission viewed the available footage of the incident on numerous occasions and carefully noted that the written submissions from AVFC with the practical information and the relevant laws of the game definition from Mr. Wiley in mind. 3 distinct opinions emerged from the Commission's discussion on the incident, and you guys will have all seen this because this is where the issue happens. I have no problem with what's happened so far. This is very standard investigation stuff. I love it. I love Alan Wiley is in the room. I love he's there to be a point of contact that people aren't interpreting the laws incorrectly. Perfect. Everything here so far is perfect. At one end of the spectrum, one of the Commission members felt that Jhon Duran was well aware of what he was doing when he stepped in the back of his opponent, Newcastle United's Fabian Schär. Jhon Duran had the time and opportunity to take evasive action. He initially appeared to be doing so, but then chose to bring his right foot back in and down and raked it across the back of his opponent. This was an obvious act of brutality, and as such, the referee had been correct to dismiss Jhon Duran. The referee had certainly not made an obvious error. That was Commission Member 1. At the other end of the spectrum, another member of the Commission felt that Jhon Duran could not have avoided stepping on his opponent due to the proximity of the players and the speed that they were moving at when they went to ground and became entangled with each other. Or you could say Schär kicked him in the nuts as well. That's another thing. That's another way of putting it. This member felt that the reason JD appeared to bring his right boot in and onto the back of his opponent was because, as highlighted by the club in its submissions, his left ankle had turned over, resulting in his weight momentum shifting to the left. To the mind of this member, in the circumstances, Jhon Duran had not used excessive force or brutality against his opponent. He had no option but to step in the back of his opponent, and furthermore, when he did, he had attempted to minimize the contact. To the mind of this member, the referee had made an obvious error in dismissing Jhon Duran, as the incident was simply an unavoidable accident caused by Fabian Schär falling directly in front of Jhon Duran at speed and at very close proximity. Lots of people have that view. Lots of former professionals have that view. Lots of Newcastle United former players have that view. Eddie Howe potentially had that view as well, after judging by what he said after the game. The third commissioner, the remaining commissioner member, felt that it was very difficult to say with any conviction whether or not Jhon Duran had or had not used excessive force or brutality against his opponent. Viewing the footage from behind, it did appear as if Jhon Duran had consciously made a second movement with his right leg or boot, initially moving it out in order to avoid contact and then bringing it back in as to stand in his opponent. However, it was also arguable that this movement had been caused by the twisting over of Jhon Duran's ankle or the speed and proximity of the two players. This member felt that the incident could be interpreted and argued differently, as in fact it had been by the other two commission members, but that his equivocal standpoint ultimately meant that it could not be said that the referee had made an obvious error in dismissing Jhon Duran. The club's claim for wrongful dismissal was therefore deemed by a 2-1 majority decision to have been unsuccessful. In respect to the claim of the excessive punishment, the commission members were unanimous that there was nothing within the circumstances of the incident that could be said to be truly exceptional, and as such, this element of the claim was also unsuccessful. Pursuant to the relevant regulations, the decision of the Regulatory Commission is final, blah, 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 blah. And that is the end. So that was published on the 2nd of January. So that's where we are. That's how an FA appeal to a red card for violent conduct or misconduct is heard and is seen. So look, I suppose we can sit here and we can start screaming blue murder about the FA or whatever the case is, but realistically speaking here, there was one fella said it was obvious, it was clear and obvious. There was another fellow who said it wasn't clear and obvious, and there was another fellow who sat in the fence. That in itself should dictate that, that there was, I suppose, that there was disagreement with regards to it. We can't rewrite this. I think it's important to go through this from a visibility point of view. But what really boils my blood is when we go back up, the double standards that the FA have applied in themselves based on who's refereeing a game at any given time. We read the violent conduct laws here, and the violent conduct laws would state, Mateus Cunha gets off with a 2-match ban because he writes a letter and offers to buy the Ipswich backroom staff a new pair of glasses. That shouldn't matter in this, João Pedro doesn't get any retrospective sanction. And it clearly says here, violent conduct is when a player uses or attempts to use excessive force or brutality against an opponent. And there's even the most fervent fan of whatever team will not ever say that João Pedro didn't swing that arm with the sole consequence of trying to at least attempt to hit the player or intimidate the player, or whatever way you want to say it. So look, we can talk about the laws of the game. We can talk about whether it was a red card or not. It doesn't matter a jot of difference. He's gone, and he's not going to be here for the game on Friday, and it's not being overturned. That's not what this is about. What this was about was to look at the process and to show that the process, realistically, you've got one person who says, "Yeah, I'm steadfast against it." One person who says, "Yeah, I think that it's that there was an obvious error," and then we've got another person who says, "I can't really determine either way." So it's like guilty until proven innocent. When you've got that person who can't determine either way, and it goes down then as a 2-1, and that's where we stood, and that's how an appeal happens. So next time you're wondering how an appeal happens, it's a 3-man panel, and they will have an ex-referee in there, which will be Alan Wiley, and they will go down through the evidence, and they will have one person. There's a potential for there to be a hung jury, for want of a better word, and if that is the case, then it goes down on the side of no obvious error, and that would be determined as the appeal would fail. I always ask for transparency with regards to this. I wanted to see it. I'm not flapping up and down with regards to the decision that they came to. I don't think that when these appeals go through, I don't know. I never knew what the process was. Now we've seen it. We see that there's holes and that it's there's a lot of open to interpretation, specifically when we've got a 1-1-1 essentially here, where somebody can either determine whether it was or whether it wasn't a conscious act. So look, it is what it is. Just wanted to come on and highlight it. It's something we had asked a question about. I do think it's a bit nonsensical that you can have somebody there who's non-committal on it and they can still make a decision. But look, hey, that's where we are now. And Jhon Duran has his 3-match ban, and potentially, I don't know, will he get an extra matches or will he get an extra fine for kicking the water bottle afterwards? But now we know what happens. Now we know the direct definition of the violent conduct laws. I expect this to be applied across the board to everybody. And I just want to leave it on the fact that João Pedro didn't have this applied. And also that Mateus Cunha was able to write a letter and offer to buy a new pair of glasses for an Ipswich Town backroom staff, and he gets his mitigated down to 2. So what I would be saying in future is Aston Villa should have a flower ranger on speed dial. Next time they get somebody gets sent off, just send a bouquet of flowers to your man with a massive letter pre-written letter saying, "We're extremely sorry for what happened. We should not have tackled you, and maybe it's mitigated down to a 2-match ban." I don't know. I think that of all the things, that That to me flabbergasts me. But we are where we are with Jhon Duran. You've now seen the process, and I hope this is this process is implemented going forward in the exact same way that it was implemented here. So we're going to leave it at that, guys. Thanks a million for your time. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll be back with anything else, and all that's left to say is up the fella.